welcome to the channel. I'm Lexicon, and today I want to talk about something that's been kind of weighing on me recently. Don't worry, it's not too heavy, and I'm not the kind of channel that's going to go too deep into things. We all just want to have fun here. But I was looking at my content the other day to see what had gotten the most views, and apparently you people have a favorite. Nothing else has quite hit the algorithm like that one, and I don't really get why. That video was just something silly and fun I did while figuring out how to make and edit stuff, and it's really not my best work, but apparently you all thought otherwise. I'm flattered, of course, but I still think I could do better. So today, we're going to revisit the concept of the Mary Sue. Let's get started. First, let's start with a nice little mock-up. Cute, right? So this time, I'm doing this in one take and drawing 3 different characters. The Mary Sue, the Normie, and the Gary Stu, for balance. If you've been here a while, you know I prefer to draw women, but I felt this would be appropriate for today's topic. I'll explain why in a bit. We'll start off with the Normie, just a regular old stick person I can draw anything on later. After that, the titular character here, Mary Sue. Pulling from my last video, she'll need plenty of ruffles, long hair, be notably attractive in a totally not mainstream way, have an overcomplicated and very roughly outfit design, and some kind of supernatural features that I'll decide on as I go. I'll also be sticking to the black and purple color palette with some added high saturation color in there for pop. I'm thinking she's some kind of half angel, half demon sorceress thing that's just totally better than everyone else and has a traumatic past because nobody likes her and everyone thinks she's ugly because she has epically cool features that just aren't as cool in her world, but they're totally fine to us. For the Gary Stu, basically the same, just with a little mix-up so they're easier to tell apart. He'll need to be the anime pretty boy type, with one of those alpha male lone wolf aesthetics. Actually, yeah, let's do that. He's the alpha of the Blood Moon pack, and he's somebody's fated mate, but he's actually super abusive. But, like, that's totally okay, because they're meant to be. Oh, and he's just a little traumatized boy, and she can totally fix him. Oh, and let's pop a third eye on him, because why not? Maybe he's related to the Sioux, and they're both, demon sorcerers who are actually really good, despite their abusive and very annoying tendencies. Did I pack enough cringe in there? Nora, can I call you Nora the Normie? Okay, you're going to have a lot to deal with in this story. Let's get started drawing. Now then, as you watch me pack 4 hours of art into a few minutes, let's talk a bit about how I glossed over some stuff in my last video. As I said last time, I view Mary Sue's as more of a problem in how they affect the story around them, rather than anything related to the characters' traits themselves. It's what I consider my own personal criteria for what qualifies as a self-important, probably self-insert character that isn't pleasant to read. However, this is not the correct definition by any means. The conventional idea of what a Mary Sue is, and certainly what it's come to mean in modern day discussion, is, well, a little bit sexist and a lot bit confusing. Now, I want to stress that I don't really care to argue here. This was supposed to be a fun, silly concept where I took the common idea of a Mary Sue, gave a cute little basic definition, and drew out some complicated, self-indulgent character designs so that we could all giggle and have a good time. However, as things on the internet tend to do, when I asked for opinions, I got them, and that one's on me. That video got the most attention out of anything I've ever done. And while I mostly don't understand why, I have a feeling it's because of the controversial nature of the Mary Sue concept altogether, which means I'm playing with fire here. But it's also what's good for the channel, so we're going to talk about it. I definitely got a few comments trying to deepen the conversation around it, and while I'm not interested on doing a deep dive into the sexism that the phrase Mary Sue is so often steeped in, I do want to give you a solid nod and say that I understand. I myself don't actually use the term in my day-to-day language, and instead prefer to see each character as an individual. Being awesome, or being naturally gifted, or likable, or whatever, doesn't make you a bad character inherently. In fact, a lot of the most beloved characters in the world are mega overpowered and exceptional and beloved by all. That's what makes following their story fun sometimes. We follow people who are exceptional because that's what we want to see, barring stories that focus explicitly on relatability or realism. We watch and read stuff about Superman because, well, he's super, or looking further into superheroes, Batman because he dresses dark and edgy and is super unbelievably rich, or Damian Wayne is a completely unrealistic character who gets treated way too well for how he treats everyone else, but people still love him. I mean, I love Damian's stories. Yes, I'm very aware that I've just mentioned all male characters, and yes, that was intentional. There tends to be a lot more of those that are treated well. My point is, I wanted to touch on this because it is an elephant in the room that nobody, myself included, really wanted to talk about in a silly, haha, funny video, but it still needed to be talked about. And the more I sit here and talk, the more I think maybe I should reconsider what these characters I'm drawing really even are. They're overly detailed, self-indulgent, essence of cool, and definitely not fitting in with our little normie over here, but I'm genuinely enjoying this art piece. Is it my best? No, probably not. Will I remember them? No, probably not. But they just look like somebody's VTuber model, or a webtoon character, a Genshin Impact character, or something of that sort. Even whenever I'm trying to draw a Mary Sue, I think that's proven kind of impossible, because the way I see a poorly written character is simply how they affect the world and the reader, and how they foster a disconnect between those two things. No one likes coming up with their own opinion about a character only to be told how to feel. In fact, nobody likes being told how to feel in general. Kind of a shocker. But yes, as it turns out, when your character's actions and personality don't quite match up with the image you try to put forth for them, it comes off a lot like brand Twitter. It's just fake, performative, and trying to get way too chummy with you when you know you're being advertised to. I don't want to hear about how Timmy Tom is this amazing guy with more layers than an onion, and he just needs to be hugged because he's an ooh sad boy. Not when he's being actively a whiny, entitled brat in every scene he's in, and I would love to see him die in a fire. I don't want to hear about how Sally Mae is a loving yet awesome sword-wielding martial artist, but she also turns into a useless, relatable mess when it's convenient for the romantic subplot, or whenever the story needs shoehorned conflict or a victim. It's just bad writing, you know? Mary Sue is just a flavor of bad writing that has, unfortunately, been assigned primarily to female OCs written by female authors, and used as a sexist weapon against any female character people personally don't like, regardless of the quality of the writing itself. And I do agree, maybe it's time we leave the term in general behind. Bad character writing is bad character writing, and there's too much baggage and bloat in the archetype itself for it to even be useful as a term in writing communities anymore to identify the bad writing. Maybe it's time to retire the Mary Sue. When I ended my last video, I said Mary Sues were a self-indulgent thing that should be allowed to everyone when they get the desire to write one, or something along those lines. But what I think I meant was that OCs aren't something that have to be perfect. When you come up with random characters for a scattering of personal hobbies, no, they don't need to be perfectly constructed and dynamic people. They can be simple or a little too complicated, or have 3 eyes and 2 tails and speak 10 languages, or be able to kill monsters by looking at them just right. I don't know. Quote-unquote bad OCs are silly and fun sometimes. And I think that's what I should have titled this entire thing instead of going for the Mary Sue route. That's something I should have thought about, and I'll admit to that. This has been one really long ramble, and I'm not sure most of it has made sense, but let's go back to the actual character art I have here. These ruffles were absolutely horrible to work on, but I'm glad I did it in the end. They ended up probably my favorite part of the entire drawing. Gary over here has a pretty cool third eye, though. Well, I promise you it's a third eye. I ended up drawing hair over both one of their eyes as a coincidence. I think I was just throwing every well-known cringy OC stereotype there I could think about. And I can say that, because that's all I used to draw as a kid when I was coming up with cringy OCs, is the hair over one eye. Speaking of, this was a lot more fun than I thought it would be. It brought me back to when I was little and just drew all the time without planning or thinking about the piece first, or how the audience would see it. When I would just stare at a sheet of paper for a second and then belt out some kind of ninja girl in a fancy hoodie with 2 swords, way too long to ever be unsheathed. Sure, they're a little nonsensical, but maybe it's what they need to be. Art is supposed to give you joy. Sometimes, maybe all it takes to be an artist is to make something that brings you and others joy. And sometimes that might happen to be a half angel, half demon with a natural gift for sorcery and bright green fire powers. So long as they're not an abusive, annoying butt wipe being portrayed as a lovable, sympathetic character, who really cares? We do need some standards, you guys. But yeah, this has been my attempt at redoing a video that I thought could use some work. And because I'm hoping this will again be blessed by the algorithm, I'll be honest. I gotta find that niche or whatever. I've already named the middle one Nora, but I don't have any in mind for the other 2. What sort of backstory or name do you see for these showy characters? Maybe you have some explanation for why the dude has a third eye that I couldn't think of. Oh, and keep those creative brains going, because I want to try something new. If this video gets enough attention and I get enough responses, I want to do a video where I try drawing your OCs in my style. Don't worry, I'm not going through the roasting/fixing art rabbit hole, and the point won't be to talk about your art at all, but to admire your character designs and make a bit of fan art, because this little exercise was so much fun, and that would be a great way to involve more of my viewers. If you have an entry, please fill out this Google form in the description. I'll pick a few at random, assuming I get enough, and see what happens. Hopefully it works out, and we get to have some fun together. Thank you so much for watching. If you had fun here today, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. A second of your time helps more than you know, and I'm grateful for every one. With that said, I'm Lexicon, and I'll see you next time.